In less than 7 years, I've been able to build a thriving business that allows me to live the life of my dreams. I've accomplished this by writing 4 books, launching 4 courses, putting on multiple live events, speaking at numerous industry conferences, all while building and growing a business. And these are just the successes. There have been a few failures in there. They take time, but they don't lead to the intended outcomes. To accomplish all of this, I have to get blank done. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you the secret on how I was able to accomplish all of this. Welcome to the Stay at Home Nurse Podcast. I'm your host, Deanna Cooper Gillingham. For over 25 years, I've strived to use my nurse credentials to find work that fit my lifestyle. Whether it was raising my 4 children and 3 fur babies, traveling the world, or moving to Mexico and living on the Caribbean Sea. Sometimes I succeeded and sometimes I failed, but I always learned from the experience. Now, I want to help you by sharing what worked and what didn't work. There are so many opportunities out there for nurses today. The Stay at Home Nurse Podcast will inspire and equip you to have a nursing career that is meaningful and supports your lifestyle. Now let's get started. Welcome to this week's episode. Today, I'm going to share with you my secret productivity hack that helps me to reach my goals. A bullet journal. What is a bullet journal, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's a system of journaling and organizing projects and tasks. But it's more than that. Time is the most precious resource we have. We can't create more of it. The real goal is to develop a mindful practice that helps you identify and focus on the things that are truly worth your time. And that's what the bullet journal system does. Now, I choose to use an official bullet journal, but for the most part, it consists of blank pages. So you really could use this system with any notebook. So why do I choose to use an official bullet journal? Well, several reasons. Number 1, consistency. They're all the same size. They all have the same type of paper. They have dots instead of lines, which I love because I make little boxes and graphs. And it has a pocket at the back so I can put important papers or notes if I need to. Number 2, it looks great on my bookshelf. They come in a seafoam green, a blue, which is my favorite shade of blue. It's actually the blue that I use for branding my business, and black. I've never bought a black one yet, but it is there. So they look really nice on my bookshelf. They're leather bound, nice thick paper. In the beginning, they have a key, tips, index, and future log. We'll get into what some of those are in a little bit. Number 4, the pages are already numbered, so I don't have to waste time going through and numbering the pages. And number 5, in the end, there are instructions, more tips, and higher level things like indexing and migration. And since I don't do these very often, I kind of like to have those tips right there where they're at my fingertips when I need them. What I like most about the bullet journal system is it is a framework. It can be individualized to meet my needs. And as my needs change, I can change my bullet journal. For example, when I was working a full-time job and my business was a side hustle, I had 3 areas of focus: personal, work, and side hustle. When I was able to quit my job, I had 2 areas of focus: personal and business. The same journal meets my needs. I don't need to learn a new system. I simply adapt the current one. The bullet journal system allows you to add, remove, and experiment. What it looked like when I started is not what it looks like now. I started out very simple, and I added things and removed things to meet my needs. Currently, my bullet journal consists of what I need to help me to be productive. That includes a daily planner, yearly goals, my weekly big 3, a to-do list, a gratitude journal, affirmations, project tracker, idea and brainstorming tracker, a place to store new ideas and opportunities, an organizer, a yearly reminder, and a book read list. In the past, I've also used it as a vacation planner, an event planner, and a habit tracker. A habit tracker is used to track things like exercise, diet, meditation, journaling, gratitude, or anything that I wanted to track on a daily basis to make sure that I got it in every day. It helped me to build the habit, and then once the habit was built and I was consistently doing this on a daily basis, I would remove it from the habit tracker, start tracking a new habit. I'm not using this at this time because I had a lot of projects that I was working on and they took priority, but it's something that I will be adding back in. Again, this is a very flexible system that can meet your needs right now and can be adapted to meet your needs later. Now, while I can't go into all of the details here today, I'm going to give you a general walkthrough of how I use this method. There are tons of resources online, particularly on YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest, that you can use, as well as the official bullet journal website, which I'll link to in the show notes. Now, don't get discouraged if you go onto Pinterest or YouTube and you see all these beautiful laid out with beautiful drawings and all of that, sketches. I don't do all that. Mine is very simple. I'm not an artist. I can't draw. So mine is very simple. It's words, but I do have used the grid lines to make sections and section pages off, and we'll go into that in a minute. So let's start at the beginning with the index. The official bullet journal has a key at the beginning where it has little symbols, and these symbols are great. You use a dot to represent a task, and then when you complete the task, you make an X through the dot. You can use an arrow going one way when you migrate something, and we'll talk about that later. You can use an arrow going the other way when you schedule something. So maybe it's a task that you had to schedule, like schedule your son's birthday party, and then once you do it, you can mark it as done. Notes have dashes, events have circles, and then I have my own, such as delegated and appointments and completed appointments, quotes, inspiration, gratitude, affirmations, explore. So you can really make your key any way that you want it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we get into the daily bullet journal. Next is the index. This is really important because it's like a table of contents. And the reason it's so important with the bullet journal is because with bullet journaling, you use the next available page. So you're always going on to the next available page. You're not trying to figure out how many pages you need something. So for example, when I was planning the Foundations of Case Management book, and I would write down all the things I needed to do. When the next day I was writing my to-do list, I started it on the next page. And then I may need to go back and add some more things to my Foundations of Case Management book, and I started that on the next page. So the index is where you write each of these things, such as the Foundations of Case Management course, the Foundations of Case Management book, daily tasks, monthly tasks, and you keep track of what page each of these are on. And it may be, for example, when I look at my May daily log, I see that it's on pages 41 and 42. And then comma, it's on pages 47 through 54, and then comma, it continues on pages 58 through 60. So you can see how I can go through and find these things easily. Also, another thing that I do, this is kind of like a little bonus tip, is I write the number of the page that it's continued on. So if I'm doing my daily log, and then I have a couple pages in between it doesn't continue on the next page, I will write and circle the page that it continues on so I can easily move forward. This is especially important with things like collections like the Foundations of Case Management course. If I have a bunch of notes written down and then I know the next, it ends and I know there's more, I can see what page it goes to and go directly to that without having to go to my index. But the index is still very important. Okay, after the index, we come to our future log. I love the future log. This is where you log everything that is coming up in future months. So right now I'm recording this in August. So if something comes up in August, I put that as part of my monthly log in the current month. But if it's something that's coming up in the future, I'll log that in my future log. So I just found out that the Chicago chapter of CMSA is having their annual conference in April. So in my future log, I have that marked for April. And you will have to go online and find visual symbols of how this is done. But it's really cool because then when April comes up, I will look and I can see all the dots of everything that's coming up in April and add that to my monthly log for April. And that's what I'll do in September. I'll be working on my September monthly log very soon. And I will go to my future log and find September of 2020 and then list all of that, knowing that these are all things that are occurring in that month of September. Some things that you might want to put in your future log would be things like birthdays, anniversaries, the first day of school for your children or for yourself, conferences, tournaments that your children will be in, weddings, showers, anything that's coming up in the future that you want to keep track of and you want to be able to plan for it. Now, these first couple sections are built into the official bullet journal, but you could easily create one in your own notebook. From this point forward is where you get to be creative. I usually start off with what I call collections, and that's because I'm carrying over from a previous bullet journal. So when I start my new bullet journal, when I reach the end, I start a new one and I carry over any lists or collections that I have already started. These would be things like project ideas, current projects that I'm working on, books that I'm reading, books that I want to read, project breakdowns. So I kind of put all those at the beginning of my new bullet journal. And when I do this, when I migrate from my old bullet journal to my new bullet journal, part of the process is to look and evaluate each of these things. Is it worthy of bringing over to your new bullet journal? If it's a project that you've been carrying over to maybe 2 or 3 bullet journals, or maybe it's something that you just don't have interest in anymore, you can just leave it out. You're starting fresh with your new ideas. But if it's something that you still do want to continue thinking about doing or you want to do, then you would add it to your new bullet journal. Now, you may not have all of these categories. In fact, you probably won't. And starting off, I didn't have any of these types of categories. These are things that I started creating lists of, like books that I wanted to read in previous bullet journals, and then I start them off at the beginning of my new bullet journal when I start the collections, when I start a new one. The one thing that I have found extremely helpful is writing my goals. So I have my 2020 goals in my bullet journal. Now, this is very important for me to reaching goals because I can always look at what are my goals for the year. Each month, I start a new monthly log. And when I do that, I look back at my yearly goals and I ask, what am I going to do this month that will help me to reach my yearly goals? And you don't have to do all of them, and you don't need to be working on all of them at the same time, but you need to pick something that's going to move you forward. So what is my focus for this month that is going to help me to get to my goals? Now, we can do a whole nother podcast on goals, and maybe I'll do that closer to the new year, but there are business goals. I have relationship and family goals. I have physical goals, nutritional goals, vacation goals, and just self-development goals. So I may not work on every single one of those every month, but I want to be very purposeful and decide intentionally what my focus is for that month to make sure that I get my goals completed. I can't do that if in December I just go back and look at my goals and say, oh, didn't do that one. I kind of forgot about it. But this gives me every month a chance to look back at my goals and see how close I'm getting to reaching them. Now for me, because I have my own business, part of my goals are to get projects completed. So next, I usually list out the projects and I do a brain dump of all the different things that I can think of that need to be done to get that project complete. I usually miss a ton of things, but at least it gets me started. And when I know that this month I'm going to work on a particular project, I can then go back and look at, okay, what is the next step that I need to do to move this project forward? Okay, from this point forward, my bullet journal is broken down into my monthly log, my weekly log, and my daily log. And as other things come up that I want to start writing down, I will put them, like I said, starting on the next page. So these monthly logs, weekly logs, and daily logs will get broken up by other inspiration, ideas, or thoughts that I have. It could be something as simple as notes that I took while on a phone call with somebody that I want to record. Or it could be a project idea that I have or a project that I'm working on. So again, I can write anything down in here that I want. If I decide I want to go on vacation and I want to list the top 10 places that I would like to go to, I can do that. That would be a collection, and I just start it on the next page. But moving on to my monthly log, what does the monthly log look like? I use 2 pages for my monthly log. So for example, my August monthly log is on the left-hand side of the page, and I have it broken down into 2 separate sections, business and personal. I then number from 1 to 31 down the side of the page, and I fill in anything from my future log that needs to go in there. So I can very easily look at any appointments that I have, any events that are coming up, anything like that. Then after I do that, I start to fill in other things that maybe are recurring things that come up, like meetings and anything that maybe if I have a goal or a deadline that I want to reach. As appointments come up during the month, I will go ahead and add them to my monthly log also, so I can look at a glance at what's going on. On the right-hand side of the page, I list my goals for that month, and I actually split this right-hand side into 2 different sections. One section is my August goals, and I have big 3, what I call my big 3 goals. So what are the 3 goals from my yearly goal that I want to at least touch in this month? And then I have a line down the center of the page, and on the other side I have my to-dos. So these are just general to-dos that come up because I can't constantly be working on my goals. Other things will come up, like I may need to schedule an appointment for a doctor's appointment, and that just came up, and so I'll write that on my to-do list. Or I may need to check in with my mom's doctor on a visit that she had, so I'll write that. Anything like that, all those little things that come up, and I know I need to do it this month, but I don't need to do it today, I will add to that monthly log. So for example, in August, I had my number one goal was to get my 3rd edition complete. So I wrote that under my August goals and as one of my big 3. And then underneath there, I wrote all the tasks that I would need to do to get that complete. And then I had a website that I needed to work on. And again, I had all the tasks underneath there. And then I had my 3rd goal, and then I had all the tasks underneath there. And then again, like I said, all the to-dos that come up. Next, after my monthly log, I go to a weekly log. Now, not everybody probably needs to have a weekly log, but I think because of being a nurse and working 3 12-hour shifts, I took my life in weekly chunks because you couldn't always do something on a daily basis. I had to look more at a weekly basis because if I was working 3 12-hour shifts in a row, I wasn't doing anything but going to work. So my weekly log, I really love this because this is kind of where I spend a lot of my time. I break it up and I theme my days. So I have a 2-page spread that I use, and I have Monday through Sunday that I divide up. I have each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I have what I bring over from my monthly log. So if I have any appointments or things that are scheduled, I bring those over, and I use my symbol for appointments for any of the appointments. If it's a birthday or something I want to remember, I put that in there as a note. And then I have tasks. If I have tasks that I know I need to complete on a certain day so that I can move forward, if I have a certain goal I want to reach by Friday and I know I need to work a little bit each day on these upcoming tasks, like say maybe reach out to a podcast guest and then follow up with a podcast guest, I will write those throughout the week to make sure that I get those done. Now, I use my big 3 again. I use it monthly, but then I also use it weekly. So I look at my monthly big 3 and I say from there, what are 3 things I need to get done this week to really move forward with my goals? And I write those down. Those are my big 3 for the week. And then I also have a to-do list, and I can carry that over from my monthly to-do list, which I look at, okay, if I would need to accomplish all these things this month, which ones can I accomplish this week based on what else I have going on during the week? And then as new things come up that need to be accomplished during the week, I will add those onto that to-do list also. Now, I also have a section on my weekly log where I have a next week. So anything that maybe comes in that I need to do, but I don't need to do it this week, but I want to make sure I get to it next week, I will write that down there, and then I will migrate it to the next week. And I have a future one, which is something like if somebody comes up to me and says, oh, we should do this. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get that into my future log, but I don't know exactly where or when it's going to fit in. I will just put that on for the future, like if it doesn't have a specific date attached to it. And then when I go to the next week or to the next month, I look at all of these and say, is this still a good idea? Is it still something that I want to do? Okay, so from my weekly, I usually spend probably on a monthly log, I usually spend at least an hour really thinking and planning and deciding what I want to get done that month. On a weekly log, I usually spend about a half an hour, again, pulling things from the previous week that carry over and deciding, does this merit being added to this week? Is this something that I'm going to put on a future project list or a future big to-do list that maybe I'll get to someday? Or is this something that maybe I don't even really need to do? It doesn't excite me anymore. Okay, so from there I move every day. I have the first thing in the morning that I do is my daily log. It's definitely probably the thing that I change up the most based on my needs. The first thing I do is a gratitude journal. Some people have a separate gratitude journal, and I like to have everything in one place. So I use my bullet journal as a gratitude journal. And every morning I write down at least 5 things that I'm grateful for. And it really helps me to get my day starting off on the right foot. After that, I do affirmations. And again, this is something we could have a whole podcast episode on. But when I first started writing my book, I was not an author. I was a nurse. And I think I've mentioned several times before, I couldn't even write a complete sentence. I had been writing nurse's notes for so long, I was writing fragmented sentences. So one of the things I started telling myself every day as soon as I woke up was, I'm a successful author. And 7 years later, I am a successful author. So I've added other things to that, like I'm a successful author, speaker, podcaster, and entrepreneur. Now, I would say that I am definitely a successful author and entrepreneur. The speaker and the podcaster are things that I'm still working on, and I am getting better at it. But again, putting that affirmation out there and telling myself every day. I tell my students to do this who are preparing for the CCM exam. You need to tell yourself every day, I am going to be a CCM. I will be a CCM. I will pass the test. And putting that out there, it then sets your brain to looking for all the things that you can do to become what you're saying you already are. Okay, again, that's something we could do a whole nother podcast episode on. After my gratitudes and my affirmations, I do my to-do list. So this is the things that I want to get done today. I'll be honest with you, I switch this up, and I can sometimes switch it up on a daily basis, a weekly basis, or a monthly basis. But my to-do list, sometimes I have my big three. The big three things from that I look at my weekly goals and I say, okay, what are the three things that I need to accomplish today that will help me to reach the things that I need to accomplish for this week? And sometimes I just write my to-dos and I don't do a big three. I just write my tasks and the things that I need to get done that day. Sometimes I try to focus at least part of my day towards reaching a goal and not just putting out fires. It can be real easy to start off my day in my inbox of my email and just start doing things in there and not really getting anything accomplished. So I try to start off with reaching something that'll get me closer to my goal every day. And that is basically it. I write any appointments on my to-do list for the day, and as I do these things, I cross them off and I accomplish them. Now, I have to say, I love writing. I know people do these on apps. I personally find it very gratifying to write down my to-dos and to cross them off as done. I find it very gratifying at the end of the week to go back and recap and say, did I get everything I had on my weekly goals and on my weekly log accomplished? And I love the feeling of being able to cross things off. If I didn't accomplish them, I migrate them to my next week, or I decide that they're not important, or I put them on a to-do list for some day in the future. And then at the end of the month, I love going back and looking at the things that I've been able to accomplish during the month. Sometimes when we go day by day by day and we're doing little bits of things, we don't see what we've actually accomplished. This was huge, especially when I was writing my book. There were days I spent just researching, and then the next day I might spend writing on that topic, and I might only get a couple hundred words written. And you look at it and you're like, this is all I got done. How am I going to get a 70,000 word book accomplished? But by taking a little bit every day in a week, all of a sudden you have a chapter done. And after a couple months, you have the entire book done. So things are not as overwhelming when you use this method. That's why I like this method. It keeps me very focused on what am I doing this week to accomplish my monthly goals? What am I doing this month to accomplish my yearly goals? And it's not perfect. I don't always reach all of my goals. I have this ability to think that things will take me a lot less time than they actually do. But overall, I think I've done pretty well. So I need to focus on the positives and the things that I have got done. One more thing I wanted to bring up, I have certain pens that I just love using for my bullet journal, and I'm kind of nerdy about this. I use a Papermate Inkjoy 300 RT 1.0M, and they come in beautiful colors. So I have one color that I use for my gratitude. I have one color that I use for affirmations. I have a color that I use for to-dos. I have a color that I use for each month. I'll pick two colors to represent that month so that if I'm like kind of just going through my bullet journal really quickly, I can identify when I change months and what month I'm on. And I know that's kind of nerdy. I don't do all the beautiful pictures and things like that, but that's my way of making my bullet journal beautiful, is by using my Inkjoy pens. Okay, this episode got a little longer than I intended, but I hope that you've been able to pick up at least one or two things that maybe will help you to be more productive. What I love about the bullet journal method the most is how flexible it is. You can start with the very minimum, like just a gratitude journal or just a to-do list, and add on. And the most important thing is to make it part of your daily routine and then modify it as needed. Add what you need to add and take away what you need to take away. I can do this on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis. Okay, that's a wrap for this week's episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you will hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, did you know that you can sign up for our newsletter at thestayathomenurse.com? When you sign up, you'll get a weekly email letting you know that the newest episode is out with a short description. We also put our show notes and links directly in that email so that you can have easy access to them. And one last thing, I will have a link to the official bullet journal website in the show notes. So if you're curious and you want to learn more, you'll know where to go. I look forward to meeting with you again next week.